Hi, Cathy. Welcome to the podcast. I am so happy to have you on today.
Me too. Hi, Jenna. Nice to be here.
So I have to tell you, my team is so fangirling. Like, they really wanted to come on the podcast. Our senior engineer is like, can I just come on and listen? I'm like, you can listen to the recording because I know you'll ask so many questions and I won't be able to talk.
That's so sweet. I really appreciate that.
You're like full celeb status in my e-commerce brands that I am the president of. So yes, we are huge Shopify fans. Every time something goes wrong in the past few weeks, they're like, can you ask Cathy? I'm like, no, we're not talking about anything going on.
We can talk about a lot of things today.
Oh my gosh. But no, I'm so incredibly honored to have you, truly. And I just can't wait to get into your story and hear all about how you got to where you are now.
Sounds great. Me too.
Great. So let's rewind a little bit. First, you now are VP of Engineering at Shopify, prior CTO at Stitch Fix, an amazing company as well, Salesforce, Yahoo, like all of these huge companies. Did you know from a young age that this is what you wanted to do with your career?
Absolutely not. I mean, from a young age, I didn't even know what technology meant, or, I mean, frankly, it was just the early days of personal computers when I was growing up. So when I was in first grade, my school got a grant for a bunch of Apple II computers. And, starting in first grade, I got to go to computer class once a week, which was a big treat. And started out doing logo programming, which was a little triangle on a screen, and you would give it commands to draw pictures. Frankly, it's a full programming language. There are loops, there are functions. You can do a lot with a visual experience. I think it's kind of the early days of what Scratch has become for my kids. But it definitely got this like hook into me of like being able to use commands to solve problems that I really enjoyed. But there weren't any computer classes in my middle school. There was one in my high school. In fact, my high school got another grant for a computer lab when I was in high school, and they gave it to the typing department, not the computer science department.
Wow.
Which was kind of crazy to think about back then. So even though I was interested in studying computer science in college, I thought about more of an abstract, like a math problem, not like, what you can really do with technology. And so it really wasn't until I had my first internship, which I really, got to experience what it was to be in the tech industry and to think about what a career in technology would look like.
Yeah. So you start, I'm sure, like getting into it, I guess after college what was your first job after college?
Amazon.
So
that was really
big
going
deal.
right into it. So I started working at Amazon in 1999, in the peak of the dot-com boom. We were launching new tabs on Amazon, every month it seemed. We would have big launch parties on the 8th floor of the PacMed building. And there was a big meme of what we would do when we run out of tab space before we had a search-driven interface. So it just was these funny jokes of like entire pages of just tabs instead of any product details.
And it was probably full startup vibes at that time, right?
Yeah, it was in this transition phase where my friend had started the year before, and they were all in this, one small building in downtown Seattle, and like I actually thought I'd missed the real startup-y vibe of it. I think engineering was in the hundreds of people, or just hitting like a couple thousand when I was there, and so it seemed like, oh, if only I'd gotten there a little earlier. What did I know? I was really living a lot of the growth, but it doesn't. It always feels like you're missing something. What was it like a little bit before you sometimes?
Yeah, looking back, you're like, no, that was definitely early days. So going through this, and I was talking to Michelle, our developer, about this as well. It's just I was telling her, your background, and I was saying this is very rare, right, for a woman in technology to have this incredibly impressive background. And she's like, yes, it's so rare. You don't even know how rare. How has that journey been for you? Like, I have to imagine you've had to be very strong, and at times it probably was a bit lonely.
Um, I'd say it's never been completely lonely. I've always had other, women or support throughout my whole career. I'd say early on my career, I just wanted to blend in. I didn't want to be getting any attention for being a woman. I would dress like the guys. I talked like the guys. I, played video games or, I remember Amazon. All the guys wore button up, polos and khakis. And, I never would have worn a dress, to work, because I just didn't want to stand out. I really wanted to fit in. And, it wasn't until I got into more leadership roles at both Salesforce and then at Stitch Fix where I felt like I could be my authentic self. Like, I realized that like me trying to be someone I'm not wasn't actually working. And it really, it was just a lot of overload on like, you're trying to think about the like, how would this person do this thing instead of having a lot of role models that had different leadership styles. A Stitch Fix was definitely a breakthrough for me of just seeing a lot of other women executives that had different styles of leadership and realizing that, by leaning into who I was and being my authentic self, it just made space for everybody in the room to also be their authentic selves. And it is really freeing not to have to think about like, trying to fit in.
Yes, it is. But I could totally see that. I feel like I would be very similar to you. One of our sister companies is full Salesforce. We are full Shopify, and it's like kind of this unspoken battle. They're different, obviously different products, and we're different businesses. But how would you say going from Salesforce to more of a startup environment at Stitch Fix and then to Shopify, how would you say you've grown as a leader going through these different companies?
Yeah. I'd say Salesforce was my first time really being in executive vice president roles. And, it was a bigger company. I got to see how things worked at scale. Just going from Salesforce was really a single line business, the sales cloud, the CRM product, and then expanding into new clouds, into new verticals was just really amazing to see. When I started at Salesforce, even though, it was well past the IPO, there were only 300 engineers at the company. And so I really got to know all of the leadership team and, all of the other directors and VPs of engineering at the company. The pace of growth was just amazing. It was just like, it was 30 to 40% every year consistently, which doesn't seem like that much when you're in it. But when you look back after 2 years, after 3 years, after 5 years, you're like, wow, like, it is this sustained growth that is just so impressive. And it's impressive that they've continued this, that to this day. I had a couple opportunities there to take on roles that I had responsibility more than just engineering, and I got to interface with sales teams and marketing teams, and just feel like Salesforce does things really well in those areas for enterprise software. That just really think that I like created this foundation for me to think about more about being a business leader instead of just a technology leader. I still love technology. I still like that's my area of focus, but I think it's really important as you go up in leadership roles to not think about just what you're building, but why you're building it, and making sure that you're having the most impact on your customers. And then when I moved to Stitch Fix, I got to do that even more so. Having a seat at the table at the C-suite is just a different experience where I was interfacing more with our merchandising leaders and our people leaders and our finance team and our legal, chief legal officer, and so it just I'd say I was most surprised going to Stitch Fix how operational it was. How complex a business of merchandising is, and inventory management, and dealing with customers, and things that I thought would be really small changes on the website would have second or third order impact that may not have been the best. So even just saying, Stitch Fix business is you send the clothes out, and they get to try them on home and return it. And you want to give them enough time to really get to wear the clothes and feel for whether they want to keep it, but you don't want them to keep it out too long because you want the products back in your inventory. And so, it would be a one line change to say, hey, we're going to give you 4 days instead of 3 days to try things on. But if you model out how much more inventory that is out, how much more inventory we would have to buy in order to serve all those needs, it's a really big cost, or it could have negative impacts on the next round of people who are waiting for those clothes. And so it just made me think about problems in a different way, and just was, I think, a real great growth opportunity for me. And then Shopify ends up being this like blend of them both. And it's been this really unique melding of really looking at problems at scale, like I did at Salesforce, at thinking about an enterprise space, but really focusing on this commerce aspect that I did at Stitch Fix. A lot of my time at Stitch Fix was actually building tools to run the business. So it wasn't actually seen by our customers, but it was inventory systems and shipping and returns and our warehouse and customer support and like all the things that you kind of feel, but they're kind of back office-y. And so my role at Shopify is building tools for merchants within merchant services. And so it's dealing with our marketplaces and our retail point of sales products, our shipping products, all of our money products. And so it's really interesting to get to do some of the things that I did at Stitch Fix, but for millions of merchants, not just one. And so I love dealing with problems of scale and thinking about things as a platform, and really thinking about how I can that the things that we're building can have a worldwide impact around on commerce.
Yeah, I mean, and you guys are truly the number one e-commerce platform, I think has to be in the world, right?
In the world, yes.
Yeah. I mean, when I go to integrate and it's like Shopify, or I think there's like sometimes like a few other names, I'm like, I don't even know what those are. But Shopify's everywhere. I mean, I use it every day. It's such an incredible product. I just am so obsessed with it.
I'm so proud of it too. And it's really, our focus is to support entrepreneurship, to really support merchants from their first sale all the way through full scale. We had over a half a dozen of our merchants go through IPO last year, which is just mind blowing to me. And I know it's really proud to see something that starts out so small to be able to scale so well on this platform.
Yeah, and it's rather than just seeing one brand scale, like you said, you're getting to see all of these brands from inception through possibly going public and everything in between. Yeah. When you are looking at developing new products or scaling Shopify in general, what is the first thing that you go to when trying to come up with a new idea? Like, are you looking at problems, or are you more looking at what opportunities are in front of us?
It's a combination of factors. We do have a lot of hackathons for our team to be able to play around and innovate and think of new ideas. And so I'd say it's across the whole company. We have everybody who has this entrepreneurship, innovation, spirit to what they're doing. But it really comes down to connection with our merchants and listening to them. So I know a lot of what we were doing with our money product came from hearing about the pain points it is for our merchants to, have to navigate banking systems and payments. We launched a product for giving capital to merchants, and we've given out over $2 billion in small business loans out to our merchants. And some of that was just because we had the data to be able to really qualify merchants at low risk to us. And we knew, we had the capital to be able to do this at times where, merchants are really strapped for cash. When they're trying to grow, they have to put the capital out to get the products, but we know that they have all of the metrics behind them to really close on those sales. And so I feel like we can do things at scale that other people can't, that we can, use our data for good and really level the playing field for folks. We like to talk about arming the rebels, like, really using our platform to help the small merchants, the first-time entrepreneurs. Because I do think like banking systems are really difficult to navigate, and they've, financial systems has always put women at a disadvantage, and so like I love this idea of leveling the playing field, about using our data to make it easier for everybody.
And speaking of disadvantages, I want to talk about, I know that you are very passionate about STEM, and within the hiring process, now that you are at this very high level, what is something that is really important to you when you're looking to grow your team?
Yeah. So I do care passionately about making the tech industry more welcoming and having an even playing field for everybody to participate. Frankly, there aren't enough technologists to solve like all of the employment gaps that we have in this space, and so it is just good for our world to be able to attract women and underrepresented minority into the field. And so I think that's just something that I care about, and hope that we're creating a better generation for my daughters and, other women that come after. But when I'm looking for a team, I want the top talent.
Yeah.
And I really am looking for folks that can be innovative, that can build, that can have impact, that really, love technology and love solving really tough problems. What I care about is that we're not biasing that decision making based on who happens to be in the room. I think it's easy to connect to someone in an interview process that looks like you, that went to your school, that came with your same background. And what we talk a lot about when we're doing interviewing is not to look for culture fit, but a culture add. Like, who's going to add a different voice to the table? Who's going to think differently than the people that are already here? Who's going to push the conversation forward? And so, there's been some times where people talk about interview problems like, who would you want to get stuck with in an airport, or who would you, want to go have drinks with? And, that's not the right question to be asking. Is like, who would you really want to solve a tough problem with? Who is going to push you to think about things in a different way? Because that's really what it's at. That's when you have a really good team. Shopify has more than 50% of the merchants on our platform are women.
Yeah.
And so we need to have a diverse set of people building the products that are going out to our merchants that look just as diverse as our merchants.
Do you ask any trick questions?
No, I actually try not to ask trick questions because I don't want the person who happened to have heard the question before or is like really good at the gotcha problem solves. I really want to see people at their best. It doesn't mean I'm an easy interviewer. Like, I still ask really tough questions, but I really want to see everybody at their best and really to make sure that that they're comfortable coming into the interview, that they're not nervous, that they're not like, playing on their defense. I had one interview when I was still in college, and I just remember this, like I believe that this person was just like trying to see how hard I would defend my problem, because I gave a solution. to this day, I'm pretty sure it was the right solution. And, he wouldn't tell me why it was wrong or what he was doing, but he was just, are you sure? Are you really sure? Are you sure that would work? and, I just got so nervous that I shut down and I didn't really defend it. And, kind of a little bit kicked myself afterwards, but also just felt like, like it really gave me a bad taste for the interview when I was done of like, is this someone I want to work with, who is really not going to collaborate with me, but is just, seeing like how much, I'm going to, push back, on a challenge.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a good point, and I've really never thought about it that way. But it's true. Seeing people at their best is where you will get the best interview.
Yeah, and that's where you'll get the best out of your coworkers too. Like we all want to be helping each other, bring their best game to the table.
So I know you speak openly about how hard it was coming off of maternity leave when you were at Yahoo. And I know a lot of women that can completely relate to this. Can you just talk a little bit about any advice you have through that process and how just being a mom and working in tech and having this very high level, high stress job, you've been able to navigate all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really difficult transition. And I'd say I am type A. I always bring my A game, and I really always am pushing myself to do better and better on things. And so when I came back from maternity leave, I wanted to hit the ground running. I wanted to do all the things I could do before, and in fact, my team that I left behind was doing so well. I volunteered to work on a brand new high priority project at Yahoo. I raised my hand, and they said, "Great." And then, when I got to this new initiative, it was hard. I mean, it was way more people than my last team. It was new. People were working really hard hours. There was a lot of travel between different sites. And so, when I saw my peers like really putting in those extra hours and working, like I felt like I really needed to as well to really distinguish myself on the project. And at the same time, things weren't going well with our childcare. My daughter had kind of stopped eating that much during the day. Like, I heard she was crying all the time. We were doing a nanny share, and another mom was calling me, telling me how the day wasn't
Terrible
going well.
it was, yeah.
Like, I can't do this all at once. And so I just went and I quit, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but this is not working. And I feel like I'm failing at my job. I'm failing as a mom. Like, something's got to give. And to my surprise, my male boss and my male boss's boss and others like reached out to me and said, "Hey, Cathy, what's going on? Like, what, tell me more. Why are you thinking about leaving? Can we convince you to stay?" First off, that surprised me because I thought I wasn't doing very well. And so my perception of the situation was different than reality. The fact that, people, had wanted me to stay was, actually a little relieving because the talk track in my head was different, I think, than reality. But the real thing that came out was one of the executives said, "Cathy, I don't know if we can give you what you want or what you need, but you're not even letting us try." And that like woke me up. I'd say it was just like, you're really right. Like I haven't even articulated to myself what I want or need, let alone ask somebody else for it. And my immediate gut reaction was like, I just want to work 40 hours a week and not travel. And when I thought that to myself, I was like, well, that's dumb. Like, if that's all I want, there's no way they would say no to that. Like, I'm
very
the one
normal
who's
ask.
pushing myself to work more than 40 hours, and I'm the one who's pushing myself to travel. And so, I really reflected back and said, like, is this just a period of time that I need to get through? And will I regret leaving? And so instead I called my mom. And so I'm really happy I have my mom for me. And I did separate from the nanny share that we had. And my mom watched my daughter. And I did pare back on the work for a little bit. And I stopped traveling for a few months. And things got better. Like I got a new childcare situation. I just stopped worrying so much about like what I thought that I needed to do and really thought about what was really necessary for the team. Um, and 6 months later, it was like a wholly different story. And I did get promoted, and I did, really, take on more of a role. But what I learned was that I think the one thing you learn when you're a parent is to focus on the things that matter. It's not just about working more hours, and it's not just about doing everything on yourself, but it is about building a team around you and delegating and prioritizing and saying like, hey, this thing that I spent a lot of time on really doesn't matter that much. And when I stopped doing it, no one cared. Whereas this other thing that I haven't been focusing on, really needs to get done, like, I'll spend my time there. And so I guess my advice, I do want to make sure that people don't take away this of like, don't give people stretch assignments when they get back from maternity leave, because everyone's different. And I don't think it's good for anyone to make assumptions. I've heard other women who are upset because they got passed over for choice assignments after they came back from maternity leave. And that's not good either. Like,
Yeah.
frankly, like, I'm glad I got that stretch assignment. It did help me in the long run. It just was harder than I thought. And, I think that I had to think about what I needed to do that, not that I wanted to be passed up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such brilliant advice. And it's just making me think, even if you aren't like, you don't have a baby, this is just very good advice of open communication and not being afraid of asking for what you want. It's like,
Right.
generally people will be reasonable. And that voice in your head, I think a lot of people can identify with that. I have to constantly tell my team, you're fine, everything's okay. Because I think that's just such a normal thing of always thinking that we're not doing enough. But I love that answer. I think that will help so many women. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I hope people will talk about it more, because I don't think that I had enough role models or people who talked to me about things that were hard coming back to work. And so I do share that story in hopes that it helps somebody, and that people will share their own stories with each other as well. The other thing I think that does help is when men take parental leave as well. So it's not just the women. And so I hope that I've seen a higher trend of that, both at Shopify as well as other companies. And I hope that we continue to see more of that.
Yeah, because or else you feel like, oh, I can identify with like the type A. You would feel like I'm getting behind, or they're, like I'm missing out, where the men are like continuing to strive. Yeah, it's a very good point. So when you have this very high level stress job, or just a lot of responsibility on your hands, I mean, I can't really imagine. I'm afraid of messing up just my Shopify account because I have full admin permissions. You have access to everyone's Shopify account. How do you take time for you and just to take a second and breathe and, just calm down for a little bit?
I love spending time with my family. So I've got 2 daughters, and I'd say I take pleasure in the small things these days. Shopify moved to this digital by design model of work. So we no longer have an office. We have space for people to collaborate in for bursts, we call it. So people travel into locations, but we don't have a day-to-day place that people go to. So you're working from home. And that's saved a lot of time for me to be able to, read more, go on my Peloton sometimes. But the thing that I think I appreciate the most is picking up my kids from school. There was a friend of mine who was a CEO years ago who told me the best thing that she ever did in her career was to have one day a week where she picked up her kids from school. And the reason is like, kids are more talkative right after their day. By the time dinner comes along, they're done. Like that was like a yesterday in their mind. Yeah. Like they can't remember. They're not going to tell you about it. But there is something about like catching them in the moment and being there to celebrate their wins or the bad things that happened in their day or the terrible lunch that they had, whatever it is. And some days they're not going to talk to you at all. But, even if it's like, 1 in 3, like those days are precious to me. And so with Shopify, I've been shifting my schedule. Sometimes I'll work East Coast hours, and then I'll pick up my kids from school, and or I'll take a break when I can. I can't do it every day, but even just once or twice a week, it matters a whole lot to me, and it's something that has recharged me and given me a lot more joy to be able to take kind of control of my schedule that way.
Yes, I love picking my nephew up from school. I'm like, tell me all of the drama. What happened in kindergarten?
Exactly. And then I often take them out for boba, which is really big around here. So their bubble tea, which is a big treat for them.
So cute. So this next question is a request from my team. I said, tell me what questions you want. I'll ask them. So Michelle on our team was mentioning that Shopify has the capabilities to sell NFTs, which is really exciting. I didn't actually know that. Yeah. Where do you see the metaverse going, moving forward, I guess, with Shopify?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that we are really bullish on NFTs and crypto, and I think that we're balancing how much effort we put into it, but we have a really talented team working in this space, and so I'd say what Shopify does is we, help people stay ahead of technology and simplify technology for folks. So we make the simple things easy and the complex things possible. But with NFTs, it's just we're making it possible for everybody to get into the space and to really experiment with it. And so we had a company all hands this year, and we asked everybody to create an NFT wallet, and we gave away some NFTs and tied it to some real company swag to celebrate our all hands. And so it was really fun. I think it was just getting people to dabble in technologies they hadn't had a lot of experience with, and to kind of show things off to their families and friends. So I think that this is just the beginning. I don't know where it's going to go, but I do love this idea of being able to kind of authenticate real products with NFTs. This idea that I think that counterfeit items is a big problem in commerce, and I think that this really gives an ability to really authenticate your products, and to make sure that when you say you have the real thing, you really do.
Wow, I've never thought about NFTs for authentication purposes. That's very smart. That's very smart.
I think it could be really cool. So that, we'll see where it goes, but
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to watch what Shopify does with the metaverse. Yeah. So my last question, sadly, I feel like I could talk to you for hours offline. All of my Shopify questions, I know. What would be your number one piece of advice for a woman who is wanting to either start her own business or just go all in on the career that she wants more than anything else?
Yeah. I'd say I always tell people to lean into the things that make them the most uncomfortable. And it's just where you get the most growth, and, really how you can learn the most. And so whether it is taking that first leap to start your own business and get your own first sale, or it is raising your hand for a hard project or a new role, I think don't shy away from those things that give you that nervous pit in your stomach, I'm someone who really thinks strongly of learning through experiences and learning through failures. And so don't be afraid of some stumbling blocks, that you'll learn more through them and be able to rise above them your next time.
Yes, so good. Cathy, thank you so much. I really hope to meet you in person someday. I feel like I could sit with you for hours, like I said. Just on the wholesale platform alone, by the way. We just launched. I'm like, I have so many questions.
It's amazing. Well, we're so glad to have you on Shopify. And I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.